Welcome to our movie recap channel, your ultimate destination for in-depth and engaging movie summaries, whether you're looking to catch up on the latest blockbusters or revisit classic films. The show opens in Ahook, Poland, in the year 1997. A reality enumerating the earnestness of an approaching flood is shipped to lawmaker Jakub Marzak's office. Yet he and his partners feel that it isn't so significant and choose to overlook it for the time being. They were truly troublesome. They'd have messaged us. The scene then, at that point, slices to about a month and a half later, and we meet Yasmina, a not entirely set in stone and coherent individual residing in the Netherlands with her accomplice. Turns out, she was the person who sent current realities, as she is a hydrologist by calling. While at the same time estimating the water levels in the encompassing box, she recognizes a lovely mother doe and her grovel. She attempts to have a superior look, yet an imprudent tracker unexpectedly starts shooting at it. Yasmina hurries to the site to save the harmed creature. Tragically, it's past the point of no return, and the creature dies. This irritates Yasmina such a lot that she gets the tracker by the collar and removes his ID. Now with last expertise Bambi truly finished, she then gets back to her van where she briefly resides with her accomplice. In the wake of talking about the matter with him, Yasmina goes inside the confidential room and takes a taste of methadone, a medication that assists individuals with stopping their utilization of heroin. The couple then continues to make some heartfelt memories by participating in COTIS. Sadly, their second is interfered with by the appearance of a huge helicopter outside. It ends up being a myth fantasy. Goodness, the clean military needs Yasmina's pressing presence in our paw. In the following scene, Yasmina goes to the Crisis Central Command in the city. After showing up, she is invited by the legislator Jakub, who likewise is her old buddy. He directs her to his office, where she meets a few leaders and researchers. A transmission network is likewise present to give refreshers and illuminate people in general. During the gathering, Yasmina shares her new discoveries, expressing that our paw is near the precarious edge of flooding, and earnest crisis activities are expected to forestall horrendous results. However, she discovers that the group depends on obsolete information from the 1960s. This implies that they are ineffectively ready for the looming flood. When they request an optimal model to follow, she speedily demands nitty-gritty informational indexes and guides to deal with. Yasmina then, at that point, guarantees them that the model will be prepared by tomorrow, which will assist them with pursuing critical choices to stop the flood. And meanwhile, they will require several water winches and pool noodles instead. The following day, Yasmina strolls with the colonel to investigate the city's water level. She promptly arrives at the conclusion that the underground water is rising. The two then, at that point, travel to the nearby town of Kitty, where that's what she realizes. Assuming the water ascends by 2 more MERs, the flood banks will fail. While examining, Yasmina meets a neighborhood occupant, Andrei Reek, and discusses the flood danger with him. She examines his home's cellar and finds damp walls, which shocks even Andrei's. He pees on those occasionally when he's had an excessive walker, but this is nuts. What on earth was that? The conversation then, at that point, shifts to his dad, a conflict veteran who is currently confined to bed in the city emergency hospital. Yasmina urges to talk with him to find out about past flooding occasions. Meanwhile, Jakub shows up near a supply and finds an occasion is scheduled to happen there. He ends up being enraged at the coordinators for not shutting it down despite repeated warnings. The director attempts to ignore him, but Jakub takes steps to fire him from his position, forcing him to agree. Subsequently, Jakub visits a pastry show to an old woman, Mrs. Basier. It is obvious that he's a customary client, as he gets several portions of bread and hurriedly leaves for the condo nearby. He then, at that point, heads to the home of out-of-commission and overweight Mrs. Trima, who ends up being Yasmina's MOM. It is uncovered that Jakub is as of now dealing with Mrs. Trima on the grounds that she and Yasmina have an alienated relationship. Or do he and Mrs. Decoration have a bizarre relationship? The following day, Yasmina readies her model arrangement and examines it with her kindred male partners. In light of her discoveries, she focuses on the criticalness of making an immediate move to forestall flood damage. She brings up that the underground water is extensive to the point that the trees are becoming yellow. While the northern states are in danger, the downtown area stays okay for the present. Yasmina proposes exploding the flood banks in a nearby town of DWO to make a hallway for the stream to stream uninhibitedly. According to her assessment, this action would assist with mitigating significant flooding. Jakob is concerned on the grounds that the flood banks shield them from rising water levels, so he questions Yasmina about why they would consider exploding them. She answers that flood banks actually raise the water levels, and although they're great for minor or moderate floods, they're counterproductive in significant flooding. With this information, Jakob is at long last persuaded, and he arranges the military to get ready for the destruction plan. The following day, when Yasmina shows up at Domino by helicopter, she finds a weir and several structures by the stream. She sees that the geology doesn't match the one that is point by point in the provided guides. After coming to an obvious conclusion, it rapidly dawned on her that the guides are from the year 1967. The pilot then, at that point, informs her that the weir was constructed a few years ago to help the parcel Carter venture. This new information influences her speculation, as environmental changes essentially alter the reason for their decisions. It implies that areas close to rivers evolve over the long haul. After understanding the adjustment of geography, Yasmina inclinations the pilot to get back to the city quickly. She goes directly to Jakob's home, clears up that their arrangement for below the Domino flood banks is presently useless. She requests that he cancel it, and he races to illuminate the military about it. Anyway, the line doesn't work as expected in the remote fields of Domino. Similarly, as he endeavors to impart the message to the military, the colonel winds up exploding the flood banks. This results in the flooding of Parcel Kaderi, harming a countless number of crowds. The following day, the representative faults Yasmina for proposing a defective methodology, yet she counter-faults them for furnishing her with an obsolete guide. She also cautions them that the downtown area is in danger of flooding. As per Yasmina, the distinctions in ground level inside the city will make the stream rise quickly, and when the water will have no place else to go, it will at last flood the downtown area. Yasmina stresses that there is now threefold the amount of water as expected. While they are examining the matter, a journalist hears their discussion. After the gathering, Jakob stands up to Yasmina about her past harrowing compulsion, proposing that her mistake and judgment may be connected with this issue. Yet she ignores him and storms out of the workplace office without offering a legitimate response. Later, the journalist offers her a ride back home in return for data. Yasmina concurs, and during their ride, she uncovers that since there are 5 waterways in the city, their combined waves will flood the entire territory. This implies that the whole city will essentially be gone. The columnist is unnerved at the disclosure, while Yasmina hurriedly advises her to stop the vehicle before a natural structure. The talk about the flooding appears spreads all through the city, causing alarm among the occupants. In the following scene, Yasmina shows up at her mom's condo entryway and slips a notification cautioning about the flood dangers and encouraging her to leave the lodging promptly. She then, at that point, goes to Mrs. Basier's market, where the old woman welcomes her energetically in a confidential discussion. Yasmina requests that the woman move her mother into her loft for a couple of days. Basier concurs and furthermore uncovers that Jakob has been dealing with her mother for quite a while. Slightly shocked, Yasmina gestures her head as a grateful signal prior to leaving the market. Later, Jakob's little girl Chiara visits the medical clinic where Yasmina is remaining and gets some information about her relationship transport with her dad. Yasmina draws in the youngster for certain unimportant insights about their work together, but tries not to tell the full truth. All of a sudden, Jakob shows up at the scene and urges Chiara to hang tight for him in the vehicle. Once they're distant from everyone else, Yasmina explains that she told nothing to the young lady. It is then uncovered that the two used to date, and Chiara is really her little girl. However, their relationship never worked out due to Yasmina's past harrowing fixation. Later, she heads to the train station just to find it shut down because of the flooding. Left with no decision, Yasmina gets back to the town of Katy for additional examination. While at it, she stumbles on a branch and tumbles on the plain ground beneath. This is when she finds a water supply under German railway track under a bridge that gets the town together with the town. Realizing something is amiss, Yasmina races to the city emergency clinic to talk with Andrei's dad about the flood. The elderly person then uncovers that a viaduct was constructed where trains used to go through during the conflict, and the crane water repository was utilized for the steam motors. Hearing this, Yasmina gets stressed, so she promptly surges out of the medical clinic. She goes directly to the central command and illuminates the archive that the stream in KTI town is getting back to its old riverbed. Now, the most ideal arrangement is to explode the flood banks. Jakob thinks executing such an errand will be undeniably challenging as a ton of occupants live there. Yet Yasmina declares that this is the best way to forestall a significant flood. After she leaves, Jakob raises the thought with his ideological group's bad habit clergyman. However, the stepping stone mocks the arrangement and orders him not to continue since it would upsurge potential media reaction. Rather, he exhorts controlling the media for their potential benefit. Following his senior's requests, Jakob educates his secretary to release the data about the destruction plan in KTI town. Soon, the media reports the designs to blow the floodbanks of KTI and the encompassing town regions. This activity should keep the downtown area of Rlaw from getting overwhelmed by the approaching wave. Some other time when Yasmina shows up at the town with the military, the locals block their way to the floodbanks and oppose the arrangement. They are naturally irate about being forfeited for the well-being of the city while getting no assistance for their own flooding. In the meantime, Kiara goes through her dad's confidential drawers and discovers some photographs of him with Yasmina. Fascinated, she keeps them with her and hurriedly locks the cabinet when she hears somebody moving toward. Her dad asks her to prepare her possessions straight away. Jakob then drops her off at his mate's place to plan for the looming flood. Following this, he heads to the workplace and holds a question and answer session to promise what is happening in Upor is taken care of. Yasmina shows up with perfect timing to hear him report this suspension of his political mission because of the emergency. She becomes angry when she understands that he's lying about the flooding and storms out of the workplace. Jakob follows her, attempting to make sense of his circumstance. Yet Yasmina is more worried about Kiara's security. She rapidly acquires their daughter's current address and rushes there. In the meantime, rodents start arising out of the trenches and dissipating all through the areas because of rising water levels. After showing up at the doorstep, Yasmina cautions Kiara not to leave the structure for the following several days to guarantee her security. The teen gestures her head in understanding and says she needs to show something. She then heads inside and recovers the photographs she tracked down in her dad's cabinet. Yet, to her consternation, Yasmina has previously left the loft. She knew where this was going, and she bailed hard. In the meantime, Jakob finds that the prior occasion he had dropped has now been given the go-ahead by the bad habit clergyman. This irritates him, and he winds up getting into a contention with the occasion's supervisor. Yet his endeavors to stop them stay purposeless. On the other hand, Yasmina races to her mom's spot to caution her about the flood and persuade her to take off from her home. However, her mother scolds her for at last agonizing over her following quite a while of deserting. She feels disheartened by the way that Yasmina and Jakob couldn't reconcile their relationship as the two keep contending. Yasmina sees a wet fix on the wall from it, and several bugs are crawling towards the upper floor to evidently keep away from the flooding. This sends Yasmina into a condition of frenzy, as she understands the city is going to be hit by an enormous fiasco. She then rushes out to call the lead representative from the US consulate and illuminates him about their critical circumstance. Meanwhile, the insight about rising water levels startles the townspeople of KTI, so they set themselves up with barricades to fight the flood. At the city clinic, a medical caretaker notices the huge ascent in water levels in the nursery and expeditiously alarms the senior specialist. Simultaneously, we see specialists at the city zoo emptying the animals in a bleak development. A staff educates the director that one of their lethal crocodiles named Roy has gotten away. The last scene shows the crocodile nonchalantly heading towards the downtown area,